This is Akashvani. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on 164th Income Tax Day, a journey towards nation building. The participants are Kamlesh Vashni, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Finance, and Anubha Rohatgi, Anchor.
The month of July is associated with filing income tax returns, and today, July 24th, is the Income Tax Day. To discuss more about the various reforms that have taken place, we have with us now Mr. Kamlesh Vashni, Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Finance. Mr. Vashni, welcome to the program. Mr. Vashni, there have been many changes over the years in the laws and rules associated with filing income tax. In fact, Prime Minister Modi has spoken about the aim of taxation reforms as being to make the process faceless, seamless and painless. How is the government making the process more people-friendly and people-centric?
We have been using technology in last few years to make this process painless, seamless and faceless. And a lot of reforms have been taken in this direction. First of all, to start with, whenever taxpayer wants to pay tax, he can pay online. He does not have to go to the bank. If he wants to file his tax return, he can file it online. He does not have to go to the income tax office. And not only that, we provide him assistance electronically in filing his tax return. When he enters income tax portal, his e-filing account, then he can see in annual information statement, TIS, what all income he has earned. That helps him in filing his return correctly. He could, earlier he used to run around banks and other places to get the actual amount of income that he has earned. Now those incomes are reflected in his e-filing portal, which helps him to file his tax return electronically. Then there is also assistance, chat box and other assistance helping him to file his income tax return. And then once he has filed his income tax return, the processing happens electronically. In some cases, you will see that within a few minutes, the income tax return gets processed. And, he does not have to wait for years. That was the case earlier. We are like, 90% of the cases are being processed within 1 month or 2 months. So we have reached that kind of progress. And then once the case has been processed, the refunds are also issued immediately. The average processing time, average days for getting refund has reduced drastically by using this technology. And that is what the Prime Minister is referring to, the painless and seamless process that we have undertaken. Then once the tax return has been filed, in 99.5% of cases we do not select it for scrutiny. Only 0.5% cases get selected for scrutiny. And in those cases also, earlier taxpayer used to have multiple visits to the income tax office, wait outside the room of the officer waiting for his turn to come to have a discussion on his case. Now he does not have to do all that. He can sit in his office and file all the document electronically. Whatever information the officer wants, that also will get communicated to him electronically. And he can also file the information electronically, what was referred to as faceless. So even that process has taken this ease of doing business one step further. And all these reforms have removed a lot of complexity in the income tax procedure.
You've mentioned e-filing, electronic verification. In fact, the whole process has been digitized. I was reading now you can even file income tax through, digital payment platforms. So how has the whole digitization process helped in not only taxpayers, but also the government in widening the tax base and the tax-paying numbers?
Yes, correct. So I just touched upon the taxpayer side, that how digitization has helped taxpayer. And it has helped us also, tax department, because we get information electronically from third-party sources. And we use that information to feed annual information statement that I referred to. So virtually whatever information we are getting from third party, we are informing taxpayer in advance. Now that is building trust with the taxpayer. Earlier process was that whatever information we used to get from outside, we used to keep in our pocket, then used to issue him reassessment notice, and that used to go in litigation. So that was a procedure which we felt is not a user-friendly, taxpayer-friendly process, and not even tax department-friendly. So now the new process is that when we get the information, we communicate it to the taxpayer through annual information statement, so that he is nudge him, help him to file his income tax return correctly. Sometime the information comes to us later on that he has spent so much money at that particular place, or he has bought this property, or he has invested here, and then we try to match with that his tax return, and we feel it does not match. Now we have started this e-verification scheme. So we communicate politely to the taxpayer that this information has come to the knowledge of the income tax department. What do you have to say about it? In many cases, taxpayer come and say, explain that it is already reflected in in my income tax return. Then nothing has to be done. Not even order has to be passed. But sometimes taxpayer feels that yes, this information probably is not reflected properly in his income tax return and he needs to update his return. From last year, we have provided him this facility to update his return. Or if he has not filed return earlier, to file return now. But obviously with some extra tax, because the main thing is that you should file your tax return correctly within the due date. And if you have not done that, then you should not be equated with the taxpayer who are doing it honestly and correctly at the first place. So some extra tax is required, but updated return facility has been provided. So that reduces litigation, reduces dispute between the income tax department and the taxpayer. And you would be happy to know that this started from 1st July 2022. Barely 1 year and a few more days have gone, and we have already received 34 lakh updated return. Now imagine these 34 lakh taxpayers, we have given them facility to pay your tax voluntarily without fighting with the income tax department. And we in the income tax department have also got correct taxes from those 34 lakh taxpayers without ending up in litigation.
You mentioned the litigation. How do schemes like Vivad Se Vishwas Tak, how do these initiatives by the government help in settling the income tax disputes which have been pending in courts for years?
So Vivad Se Vishwas scheme was a very successful scheme which came out in 2020, and I don't have the exact number, but I guess around 25% disputes were settled. So that was a good achievement. Our disputes got reduced by 25% at all level up to Supreme Court. But then such schemes cannot come every year. Otherwise people, there is a question mark. Idea is, can we reduce litigation through normal process? Let litigation be not there. So we already have a scheme, advanced pricing agreement for transfer pricing. And that's a very successful scheme. India, is always looked upon as a very successful administrator who has administered APA very successfully. Last year alone, we signed about 95 advanced pricing agreement, which is a record, absolutely, and that shows the commitment of Government of India, Income Tax Department, to provide tax certainty in transfer pricing matters. Now, that is one basket, transfer pricing issues, so that we don't have litigation in transfer pricing issues. In other areas also, we have just few days back, dispute resolution committees have been formed, which would try to reduce litigation in small cases. But then also there is an effort that dispute should not arise at the first place. If there is any, difference in opinion, can we clarify it through a circular? So that is also being circular issued from time to time, so that disputes are not there. And this is a continuous process, that whenever there are different views, so maybe, it is something for examination, whether we can come out with a circular or we can amend the law so that this difference of view does not remain. So the focus is very much there that we need to reduce litigation.
With litigation also comes the question of transparency. Over the years, what are the different reforms that have been created by the government that have led to more transparency in the whole system of paying taxes, especially income tax?
So I just discussed, using technology. So technology itself is the biggest enabler for transparency, because when you use technology, there is a trail. Whenever taxpayer is submitting any document, he has a trail. Now that nobody can say that you did not submit the document in time, you did not give a reply to my show cause notice. Everything is properly trailed and documented. Similarly, whatever is coming from Income Tax Department has to have an income DIN, document identification number. If it does not have DIN, it is legally not valid. So everything now is, so transparent that the earlier inconvenience is completely removed, and whatever department is asking you, whatever you are replying to the department, or whatever return you are filing electronically, your processing happening, your refund getting issued, your demand being created, everything is happening electronically and in a transparent manner.
One of the biggest challenges for the Income Tax Department and the government has been to combat tax evasion. How has the department been tackling this issue?
So once again, see, tax evasion, as I said, that sometimes you are short of compliance with the tax laws. There could be various reasons for it, and I covered e-verification scheme and updated return. That is one scheme to enable taxpayers who by mistake they were not they were short of compliance, or for some reasons they were not able to comply. So that is the biggest enabler, and the number that I told you, 34 lakh in 1 year, is testimony that this scheme is working and working very well. So we don't want to end up in litigation with these people, otherwise compliant taxpayer, but for some reason they were not able to do it properly. So we enable them to do it properly through this scheme. There would still be some taxpayer who are actually evading taxes. So once again, we use technology to identify such taxpayers. We have artificial intelligence, we have investigation methodology, we have even opened up a forensic forensic lab in our income tax department, cyber forensic, and all that we are doing. So that way we are using technology once again against people who are evading taxes, so that we send a message that it is not lucrative, it is not profitable to evade tax. You will get caught. I mean, that message is important. Once that message is gone, then evasion automatically decreases in the society.
One of the reforms in the income tax or the taxation system has been the rationalisation of tax slabs. How has that helped? Because this year also the finance minister, she introduced a new tax slab. So how has that helped in widening the tax base?
That's a very important step that government has undertaken. And government announced intention to have this particular tax policy reform way back in 2015, when the then finance minister announced that these incentive and deductions are quite inefficient and does not lead to efficient allocation of resources. So it was announced that slowly we will be reducing exemption and deductions, and we will be lowering tax rate. Now that is what we have seen empirically, that when you remove exemption deduction and reduce tax rate, then compliance go up, tax collection go up, and it is also in interest of taxpayer. And that is what was done in 2019 for corporate tax and 2020 for individual tax. But what was done in 2020, probably we did not get the kind of response we were looking for, and therefore in this budget 23 that you just referred to, the finance minister gave a proper focus to revisiting these slabs.
You know, when it comes to filing income tax returns, most of us, including me, we take the help of a chartered accountant because we just feel intimidated by, the whole process. So what has the income tax department done to simplify this, and so that, the common taxpayer can just go ahead and do their own taxes?
Yeah, so what we have done is that first of all, ITR1 currently, ITR1 is very simple tax return form, which is very easy to fill. You just go on the income tax website and all that information is required, already available there, and you can just fill it up, and it's very easy to fill. Once you get in there, it's such a user-friendly website that you will find that it is very easy to file income tax return. And ITR1 is applicable to most taxpayers who do not have business income, who do not have a capital gain, and have income below 50 lakh. Generally, I'm saying, and as you move to other ITRs, the difficulty level rises. That I agree. But what we are proposing to do now is that instead of having 7 ITR, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and one has to even see which one to file, and all that difficulty will no longer be there from next years. And probably it is expected that next year we will actually have CTR implemented. Once we have CTR, then we have just one form. And that one form will ask you simple question that what income you have, are you a director in a firm, are you unlisted share, do you own unlisted share. Only the schedule which is relevant to you will come before you, and then you can file your tax return under CTR. So from next year you will find a much more simpler filing experience.
Mr. Vashni, we were just talking about at the beginning of the program that July 31st is the last date for filing income tax returns. Now there are a lot of people who say that their income is not under the taxable slab. So they feel that, they don't have to file income tax returns. What is your advice to them?
No, my advice is that sometime your income falls below 2.5 lakh or now, which has been increased to 3 lakhs. So one can say that I am not required to file return. But then there are other criteria also that you have a foreign visit, you have electricity expenditure, you have credit card. So sometimes you don't know you actually have it, so you may have to file return without knowing. So it is always better to file your tax return, even otherwise, when you have been filing it regularly without a break. And sometimes it helps you also in other areas, economic activity, if you have to go to the bank to take a loan, or you have to obtain a visa of a country. It's always important that once you are filing tax return, just 1 year you fall below 3 lakh or 2.5 lakh, you say that I should not file tax return. You never know, because there are other conditions like credit card expenditure, foreign visit, and also you may be required to file return even otherwise. So it is better to file the return, and because now economy is getting integrated, so it is always advisable to file return even in that case.
And what are the kind of reforms that the government is working on for future to make the whole process more simple?
So I explained that CTR is, I have explained, and then government is making income tax law simple, and there would be further reforms, and litigation is one area where government would be working more how to reduce litigation, and tax reforms are ongoing exercise. They are always look out to make it more simple and easy for taxpayers.
Thank you so much for coming to the studio and taking part in this discussion.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And wishing all the taxpayer happy tax filing.
You were listening to a discussion on 164th Income Tax Day, a journey towards nation building. The participants were Kamlesh Vashni, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Finance, and Anubha Rohatgi, anchor. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on Air. This program is also available on our YouTube channel News on Air Official.